MTN News, this is Montana This Morning.
Get ready, Ennis. I'm Cassidy Powers, here to give you a preview on the 89th annual 4th of July Parade.
Some new fallout after the Supreme Court's monumental ruling that presidents have total immunity for official acts. I'm Jared Hill with what this could mean for former President Trump's court cases.
New research shows migraine headaches may be growing more intense for many patients. I'm Bradley Blackburn with how doctors say new treatments can help.
I'm Megan Thompson here at Mount Moriah Cemetery in Butte, and coming right up, I speak with family members who made the final stop here at the cemetery to visit the graves of their ancestors who were lost in the 1895 explosion that rocked Butte.
Alrighty, it is the top of the hour, 6 o'clock. Speaking of Butte, a beautiful look over the mining city this morning.
Beautiful.
And very, very beautiful, and that sunshine is coming up over the peak.
It's going to be a little cooler than average today, but right on par for what we've been dealing with the last few days. Temperatures this morning, a mix of 40s and 50s for most of the area. Our coolest temperatures 37 in West Yellowstone, 39 in Wise River this morning, so a little crisp and cool there in those areas. Generally pretty quiet as it stands now. I do expect to see at least a few isolated showers, especially in the northern part of the viewing area as you go through the day, not looking at anything heavy particularly. Temperatures expected to be right into the upper 60s and low 70s for the afternoon. Outside of a stray shower or two, it looks like it's going to be pretty dry for the vast majority of the area. I'm going to look at that 4th of July forecast and beyond coming up in just a few minutes.
All right, thank you very much, Matt. Now, here's a follow-up to a story that we first reported a little while ago. Madison Foods, Ennis's longtime grocery store, now has a new home. The new Madison Foods opened June 20th and remains the only grocery store in Ennis. The old Madison Foods location, which is next to the new one, was purchased by a local couple who will soon open Ennis Home Furnishings. Chris Gentry, the owner of Madison Foods, says nearly 20 employees are now on the payroll and adds that she is hoping to hire more. Madison Foods also added Arctic Circle, which Chris explains is similar to a Dairy Queen. A drive-thru is expected to open at the end of August.
And what has the feedback been so far?
It has been overwhelming. It's been great. Everybody has been so excited coming in, and we're just ecstatic to have them in here too.
Gentry says Madison Foods will also be adding fuel pumps to make the business a one-stop shop in town. And the Ennis Chamber of Commerce is preparing for its much-loved 4th of July parade. And our Cassidy Powers reports from Ennis with what to expect for this year's festivities.
In just a few short days, this road behind me is going to look completely different as Ennis celebrates their 89th annual 4th of July Parade.
Last year was an exceptional year. We had about 8,000 people. It was quite crowded.
Heather Bruner is the events coordinator for Ennis Chamber of Commerce. She tells me what to expect for Ennis's 89th annual 4th of July Parade.
The theme this year is Wranglers and Anglers. So we are having our older generation of Wranglers and Anglers ride as the Grand Marshals.
This beloved parade is on Thursday, July 4th and will go from 10 to 11 a.m. The parade will begin on Conley Street over by Ennis School and proceed all the way down Main Street. Heather tells me this year the Chamber of Commerce is expecting another great turnout.
People come from all over the country. It's generations of families that come back every year, plus the locals that are new and who have been here a long time.
Which I found to be true after speaking to Brent, who came all the way from Georgia.
We are going to the parade. We love Ennis. My son and daughter-in-law came last year, and they said, "Dad, you got to go." So they brought me and my wife out here.
And Sean from California tells me the parade is special to him and his wife because
grandparents have property out here. We got married, so we come for our anniversary every year.
Oh, nice. Yeah. And Heather was correct when she said people come from all over the country, but I learned they're actually coming from all over the world to experience Ennis's 4th of July parade and rodeo. I spoke with Amy and her family who traveled from the land down under.
Are you going to the parade on Thursday? I am, yeah.
Are you guys from Ennis?
No, we're from Australia.
Oh, and what made you want to come to the parade?
Want to see a rodeo.
But the main message Heather and Ennis Chamber of Commerce wanted to get out before the festivities on Thursday begin.
Highway 287 will be closed at all 3 entry points into Ennis beginning about 9:45 a.m. but it should open up promptly at 11 a.m.
Heather says people who plan to travel through NIS on Thursday should plan accordingly. For more information about NIS's parade or rodeo, visit our website. In NIS, Cassidy Powers, MTN News.
And it's always a fun time. Thank you very much, Cassidy. Now, there are continuing reverberations this morning after the Supreme Court ruled former presidents have broad immunity from criminal prosecution. Former President Donald Trump is now asking the judge in his hush money trial to set the guilty verdict aside. CBS News' correspondent Jared Hill has more from New York.
This morning, new questions around whether the Supreme Court's monumental ruling on presidential immunity could impact former President Trump's felony convictions. Trump's lawyers are asking the judge in his New York financial records case to delay next week's sentencing and toss out the convictions, claiming some evidence came from his time in the White House and should be considered official presidential acts.
For the things that are just for the president, for those things that are just within the president's ambit, absolute immunity. For official acts in general, at least presumptive immunity.
The High Court's 6-3 decision will likely slow Trump's January 6th election interference trial.
There is an enormous amount of legal work that is now going to have to unfold over the next several months. That means the chances of a trial before the election are zero at this point.
President Biden criticized the first of its kind Supreme Court ruling.
Today's decision almost certainly means that there are virtually no limits on what the president can do.
Chief Justice John Roberts wrote for the conservative majority that the president may not be prosecuted for exercising his core constitutional powers without specifying the limits of those powers. Justice Sonia Sotomayor offered hypotheticals in the dissent, quote, with fear for our democracy, predicting disastrous consequences as a result of the decision she called deeply wrong. Trump celebrated the moment, writing on social media, "Big win for our Constitution and democracy. Proud to be an American." Jared Hill, CBS News, New York.
And if Trump wins the election, he could pardon himself from the January 6th case, or his appointed attorney general could potentially dismiss the charges. Now back in some Treasure State headlines, the warming center in Bozeman shut down this weekend after a man reportedly made threats over the phone to, quote, light it up. According to charging documents, 29-year-old Anthony Smith called the warming center, threatening to shoot up the building. HRDC staff decided the threat credible and closed the warming center doors. A Bozeman police officer eventually caught up with Smith and found a firearm and 243 rounds of ammunition in his possession. According to court documents, Smith has a history of weapons charges. Smith is currently being held in the Gallatin County Jail, charged with intimidation. And last June, well, that was Migraine Awareness Month. And we might be in the month of July, but it's an issue that continues month to month and year to year. And new research suggests that the past 20 years, the debilitating condition and its impacts are getting worse for patients. But as Bradley Blackburn explains, new treatments are offering new hope.
Mimi Frisch recently graduated medical school and became a doctor.
And they really started getting bad when I was in high school.
But since she was a child, she struggled with her own health challenges.
I often feel like it's really just like, it's like squeezing my brain.
It took multiple doctors to get the correct diagnosis, migraine headaches that can at times be debilitating.
There have been times when I'm like out with friends and I get such a bad headache or migraine that like I have to leave and go home and sit in a dark room by myself.
Some 40 million Americans live with migraines, one of the leading causes of disability. Mount Sinai headache specialist Dr. Fred Cohen says data shows by some measures they're getting worse for sufferers.
The impact and burden of migraine as well as the headache frequency has been going up.
His study found since 2004, scores on the Migraine Disability Assessment Scale have gone from 22% to 42%. The answers why aren't clear.
Go to your left, go to your right.
But for patients like Frisch, newer migraine medications are providing relief.
It's remarkable how much it's changed my life. I remember the first month that I went where I had 4 weeks without a headache, and that was like unbelievable to me.
Dr. Cohen says if migraines last longer than a few hours or are severe, see a doctor.
The vast majority of migraine patients aren't getting adequate treatment. And a lot of it is that, unfortunately, they don't know. And there's a lot of tools.
The pain is real, and so is the promise of treatment. Bradley Blackburn, CBS News, New York.
And migraines affect more women than men, but all patients have seen an increase in frequency and impact. Now back in some Treasure State headlines, a Butte History Club is bringing the past to life for the descendants of victims of a huge explosion in 1895. The blast wiped out the warehouse district and much of the Butte Fire Department. And our Megan Thompson talks to family members who traveled across the United States to take part.
Well, these are some of the grave sites of brave men and women who were lost in an explosion in 1895 that rocked the city of Butte. And a history club here in town has brought together the ancestors of some of those people.
It makes me feel proud that my ancestor, Angus Cameron, was here and was the head of the fire company and went in bravely during a fire. And I hear the stories about him and his leadership, and it reminds me a lot of others in my family.
Butte was not unaccustomed to accidents. They were not unaccustomed to death, and they fully understood how important it was to react.
You know, it's where I began. This is what happened, and the courage that still runs in my family. It all started back here. You know, the willingness to help and just the courage to be part of a community.
So much of history for me of these periods is black and white because all the pictures are black and white. And so when I stand here and I look around and I try to imagine those people here seeing these same mountains, I mean, it really, you do feel connected to the previous generation. So it's been very special for me.
Beverly Johnson of New York City, Joan Robbins of Arizona, and Mary Petlin Curran of Oregon are part of the group of 50 family members of different individuals lost to the explosion.
Your ancestors, your family, did exactly what they needed to do, and they did it without hesitation.
Butte Historical Memorials and the Butte Silver Bow Public Archives showed the families around town so they could learn more about their ancestors and their connection to the mining city.
Well, we kind of thought it'd kind of complete things if we could have some kind of a ceremony or some kind of an event. It's kind of a closure for them as well.
It's just so wonderful to have this connection with my great-grandfather.
In Butte, Megan Thompson, MTN News.
Well, and I love what she said, Matt. I mean, looking at old black and white photos, it is easy to somewhat distance yourself from what happened, but being there, I can only imagine what that meant for those families.
Yeah, putting a little bit of perspective to what's currently there to the past.
Yep, their ancestors saw those mountains, were walking these streets, pretty powerful stuff. Now, before we head into a break, wanted to share this pretty interesting story with you. We're going to be heading over to Baker County, Oregon.
Okay.
Well, you never know what you're going to see as a life of a sheriff's deputy.
That is the funniest little, I don't even know how to describe it.
I mean, who would have known that's how skunks cross the street? Yeah, a herd of skunk
skunks.
Maybe. I have no idea. This is a mama skunk and a lot of pups. I think you'd call them pups.
I don't know.
I don't know, but they listen to mom. They know who's in charge. All right, kids, we're crossing the street, sticking to single file. We're going. Come on, come on, come on.
It's pretty cute.
It's pretty fun, and you know what?
From a distance, it's pretty cute.
Inside a cop car. That is right where I want to see a skunk. I do not want to be out in the open with those things. Especially what? That looks like almost half a dozen of them. That could create a smell I don't even want to attempt to describe. No,
pretty funny.
No,
and it's caught right there on camera. I love it.
I love it. I think it's pretty cool. All right, 6:13. We're going to take a short break here in Montana this morning. But when we come back, we're going to continue our conversation of in vitro fertilization. But we're going to focus over on Capitol Hill. We talk with Congressman Matt Rosendale on why the issue has become a lightning rod in Washington.